if you don't like this approach to training, you think I'm talking, then fine, don't worry, peace. If you're interested in learning more, you'll be able to explore more positions that your body can get into. Take that how you want. Hey guys, this is Connor from SuppleStrength, and today I'm going to talk to you about the 5 foundations of a well-rounded exercise routine. These foundations, before we get into them, don't need to have an equal balance. I'm not saying you should spend 1 hour on each one each week. Obviously, everyone has their own unique goals and you should work towards them. My advice is that you just include all of these elements in your training. These 5 foundations are posture, self-myofascial release, strength, mobility, and locomotion. Posture is something most of us are aware we need to improve. Whether you spend your time sitting in an office or working on a building site, it's difficult to maintain good posture. There's a lot of distractions, whether it's new emails coming through or your crush walking past. Normally people can maintain good posture for 20 seconds, a minute or two, and then we revert back to our bad resting positions. The reality is you can't out-train bad posture. Now what I mean by that is if you maintain posture for most of the week and then spend 3 to 5 hours a week in the gym with good focus technique, it's not enough to compensate. My advice would be to everyone to take necessary steps, which we're going to go through on this channel, to improve your posture. Now, before I carry on, these 5 foundations, they're not in a priority order. Everyone's going to be different depending on your goals and your weaknesses. So the second one, we have self-myofascial release. Self-myofascial release is the most commonly neglected part of someone's time spent exercising. It's a relatively newly popular method. When I say that, I mean the last 5 to 10 years. However, at this stage, we know the benefits. They've been shown time and time again, and it's something everyone should be doing. When I first got introduced to self-myofascial release, it was through Kelly Starrett and Mobility WOD, which is a fantastic resource I recommend you check out. When I first started, the results were so impressive that I actually decided to do my physiotherapy university dissertation on the use of a foam roller, and the results were excellent. It's something I commonly use myself at least 2 or 3 times a week in my training, and I think every single client I've had over the last few years, I've probably pushed on to self-myofascial release. It's the quickest way you can experience the biggest benefits in how you feel and move. Thirdly, we had strength training. Strength training is another essential component. It gives many benefits, not only to how you look, but also internally, your physiology, your bones, how strong they become, and even how body fat is distributed and macronutrients are distributed throughout the body. So there's many different ways to approach strength training. You don't necessarily have to get under the barbell and start doing heavy squats and deadlifts, as many strength coaches would have you believe. As long as you're getting stronger over time in a well-rounded range of exercises, you're going to be okay. Again, we will cover these methods over the coming months. The fourth section we had, or foundation, is mobility. Again, going back to sitting down a lot. From a young age, we're told sit in your chair and don't move, which is disastrous for many things, but particularly our mobility. We spend the whole week with our knees flexed to a 90-degree angle, which means for most people who I see in clinic, when they try and stand up, they can't even do that and engage the muscles in the right way due to the limitations they have. Mobility, if you start to work on it, is something that's going to massively improve how you move and how you feel. The risk of injuries will go down significantly, and you'll be able to explore more positions that your body can get into. Take that how you want. Last but not least, we have locomotion. So locomotion, how you get from A to B, the foundation of that is walking. Walking and running are something that we're expected to learn through trial and error. And to some extent, we have no choice. We have to fall a few times in order to get into the swing of things. The reality is most of us don't actually walk that well. Whether that's because, again, we sit too long or whatever it is, we don't. So it's something we should strive to improve. There's quite a few physios and people who would say, you know, no, we're all different as humans, and it's normal to have a wide variety of patterns and how we move. Agreed, everyone is slightly different. We all have different builds and whatever else. But if we're able to improve our walking and running, it sets us up with an excellent foundation for more complicated movements such as sport. There's one catch, which is obviously if we're trying to improve things simultaneously, the progress in each individual area might be slower, but this quickly gets cleared out by the fact that your consistency will improve. And what you'll start to notice over time is that these different foundations, which might seem to be opposing, will actually be complementary and help you build as a human being, as a mover and an athlete. So there's 4 categories of benefits when you start to approach your training in a more well-rounded way. Firstly, we've got physical benefits, then we've got mental benefits, social benefits, and, bear with me, spiritual benefits. Physical, this will be the most obvious. There's commonly people get injuries from doing the same type of movement too often. And when you approach your training in a more well-rounded way, not only are you spending less time focused on specific movements that might trigger issues, but also the other areas will improve how you move. For example, if you're a runner and you start to do some strength, self-myofascial release, and mobility work, those 3 components will actually help how you run, and that will reduce the amount of time you spend running slightly, but also it will improve your technique when you run. Other physical benefits include less chance of plateaus, and also building a better overall physique. So your ability to play with your kids, also, I don't know, pick up a car or a carpet, let's be realistic, and run for a bus are going to be easier. If you're just strong, then yeah, you can pick up 2 carpets, but you might struggle getting down to play with your kids on the floor, and maybe running for a bus is out of the question. So you'll be more useful as a human being overall. Secondly, we have mental benefits. Now, mental benefits come mostly from the fact that you're continuously learning a vast range of new skills. The more skills you learn, the more you're challenging your mind in different ways, and that will keep you mentally sharper and also improve your ability to continue learning new skills. So if there's a sport that you wanted to pick up on holiday, maybe you wanted to go skiing or surfing or just hiking, you're going to find that you pick up new things easier because you're used to being in that state of mind. Thirdly, we have social benefits. My personal opinion is that the more vast range of people you can experience and introduce yourself to and get to know, the better your own outlook and mentality will be. You often find that people will niche down and focus on their specific social group and not so much dismiss other people, but they just don't take an interest and don't try and stand in the shoes of other people. For example, with politics, everyone's black and white and arguing, and I think when it comes to most areas of life, again, in my opinion, and specifically with training, it can be very useful to go into other areas to see how other people look at things. For example, if you're someone who spends most of your time in the free weights area of a meathead gym, everyone's juiced up, or maybe not juiced up, but testosterone filled, and there's a real aggressive energy in there and everyone's pumping and pushing hard all the time. If you now take yourself into a yoga studio, for example, or a Pilates class, it's a completely different energy and there's a completely different group of people there. Oftentimes, when you step into that, you'll find that's been the most difficult workout you've ever done. It's quite common with professional athletes who've never done yoga, to use yoga as an example again, they'll try it for the first time and say, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. Don't write off something that you haven't tried yet, give it a go. And also you might learn something, not only regarding your training, but mentally, maybe their outlook is different. Again, going to that sort of intense, aggressive nature in the weightlifting room is very different to the healing, relaxing and therapeutic nature of a yoga room. And most people can benefit from having both. You don't really want to be all go and no rest, or vice versa. Finally, we have spiritual benefits. So when I say spiritual benefits, specifically what I'm referring to is the ego. If you are often the beginner, and let's go back to that example of a weightlifter going to a yoga class or vice versa, when you put yourself in that stage of being a beginner, it is useful as reminding you that you are not superhuman. When we niche down and focus on our specific area and our social group and our comfort zone, we can start to it can start to reduce our outlook and have a negative impact. And over time, especially for people in my demographic, young men, it starts to boost your ego. You think, yeah, this is the way forward. And I've heard quite a few runners say, for example, oh, I don't see the point of weightlifting, or weightlifters mock runners and stuff like that. Put yourself out of your comfort zone. Try something new. Get your ego in check. None of us are perfect, and we all can benefit from approaching things in a more well-rounded way. If you don't like this approach to training, you think I'm talking, then fine, don't worry, peace. If you're interested in learning more, then subscribe or sign up if you're on the website. I'm going to send across a free cheat sheet covering these 5 foundations in a bit more depth, and I look forward to sharing more content with you. If you have any comments or questions, please get in touch on whatever platform you see this on, and I'll get back to you. If there's any specific bits of training or rehab you want advice on, let me know and I will produce a video on them. Take care, guys. I will see you soon.